Hello and welcome back to my RC channel. I'm Andy RC and today I'm going to be doing a build video of the Happy Model Trainer90. It is a one cell brushless micro and it was actually advertised as a bind and fly and it was very cheap, I think around £51. So I thought I'd get it in, but be careful because, well, first of all, there's two versions and it's actually a kit, so you have to build it up. So this is the version that has the smaller motors. These are a 0703 motor, and the other version, they are a grey motor, and those are a 706, so a bigger and heavier motor. I also believe that one uses a micro lossy connector and a bigger battery. So this one weighs just 24 grams without a battery, and then you're given this high volt 250 milliamp battery, and it weighs 31 grams with the battery. I think the other version weighs around about 30 grams without its battery, so it's quite a different model actually, but I think the components are the same. I think the frame is the same. So it's been quite an easy build in one sense, but difficult in the fact that it's all miniature soldering. So this is an all-in-one board here. So it's an Esc board and a flight controller. So they are a 5 amp Esc and it's a F3 flight controller. The ESCs do support D-Shot 600, so they are flashed with BL Halley 16.6, which I think is quite good for the price. And then this is the FrSky version, so we've got a little D8 receiver at the back there, but there are quite a few other receivers available, such as the FlySky 2A and DSM2 DSMX are also popular choices. Comes with a buzzer as well, which I thought was quite nice. You can solder that direct to the board. Then we've got a 25 milliwatt all-in-one camera at the top here as well. Now, downsides, definitely the frame. It's really flimsy and I can see that breaking. Another downside was this 3D printed camera mount here. The 3D print was of a terrible quality and I had to break it apart in order to fit the camera, and it didn't fit in this mount anyways. I've had to use some hot glue to secure it in, and I never like to use hot glue in a build, especially on a all-in-one camera. You can only really use hot glue at the front because this is the camera part, then the back part is the VTX. Gets very hot, so maybe a different type of glue would be better, or I could find a different mount. I imagine there are probably some on Thingiverse because, you know, it's a very popular tiny whoop all-in-one camera. You do get given some instructions on how to build it. Half of it is in Chinese and half of it is in English. Don't throw the Chinese part away though, because that is the one that tells you where to fit the buzzer and the other one doesn't. But yeah, out of both of these instructions, I found it pretty simple to get going. It needs a full setup on Betaflight. This is a kit, so you know, it's a complete build and setup sort of thing. I should mention that in the box you are given a high volt charger. It's got a little switch on there between high volt and a normal LiPo. And you are going to need a transmitter, so I'm going to be using the FrSky Taranis, and you are going to need FPV goggles. So these are the Dominate HD3s with a true diversity system. We've got a Aomway cloverleaf and a bandicoot linear patch for the linear antenna on this model. So the first thing that I'm going to do is start tinning up the all-in-one board. So these are the motor pads here. I'm using a Hakko soldering iron, and cue the comments about me not using helping hands. Here's a little tip for you when making videos. It really slows the process down when using helping hands, just more stuff to get in the way. Anyways, I'm cutting down the battery connector and then stripping it. Make sure you don't cut it too short though, and then I'm going to tin those up. And then this is the ground going in, and then the positive. Then I'm going to cut the receiver wire shorter. It's nice silicon wire, this, with the receiver, and then I need to strip those down as well. And then I'm going to tin them up. I use a pair of grippers with a rubber band around it for helping hands. nice cheap option. And then this is the signal going in for the receiver. It's the same for all of the receivers. It says the 5 volt and then the ground. Then I'm going to take the camera and cut the harness shorter and then strip all of these wires. That's going to solder direct to the board, so just tinning all those up there. That's the ground going in, and then the 5 volt, that is the video out and the video in. And then I'm going to cut the pins short on the included buzzer, and I'm going to tin that up, and I'm going to solder it direct to the board. It does mean that the pads can lift if it gets knocked, but you know, there's not a lot of space in this, so I decided to go with that. Then I'm taking the screws and the standoffs and putting all of those and just tighten them up by hand. And then I'm just going to move the wire out of the way so that it doesn't get trapped in the standoff, and then just place that over the top there, and then put the standoffs over there for the camera to sit on. So that's all of those in. And then this is the 3D printed mount. I'm using a drill bit because the holes aren't quite big enough to feed through to the standoffs. Not impressed with this 3D printed part at all. But there you go, you can see it just slides over the top there, and the camera wouldn't fit in. So I had to cut some of the side off with some cutters, and then I put some of the double-sided sticky foam, which they provide, but it wasn't enough, so I had to put some hot glue at the end, but I didn't show that on here. So next, all of the motors are going in. You got 3 screws, and it's a Phillips screwdriver. You need to get one of those yourself, and I'll just skip the other motors because yeah, that took some time to do. And then the next thing to do is to cut the motor wires a little bit shorter. Again, silicone wires, pretty impressed with that. So yeah, just measuring them up roughly and then cutting them with some cutters. And then stripping all of those wires, so I'll speed that up. And of course you need to tin up all of those wires as well, and it's the bit I don't look forward to at all, so I'll just speed that up for you. Very tricky there. And then this is the motors getting soldered to the ESC pads. So I tried to solder them all in straight, which I managed to do except for one. So I had to change the motor direction in BL Heli Suite, but you know, not a big deal, you can do that. So yeah, if you solder all the motors up straight, then they go the right direction, which I thought was a nice touch, especially for the price. So that's all of the motors in there. Then I'm cutting another sticky foam pad for the receiver to sit on at the back. And then that just slots in there nicely to the side. You can access the bind button still. And then just plug the connector in for the receiver, and we're pretty much done with the build. So it needed a full setup in Betaflight, which I kind of expected. And something a little bit frustrating is that it sometimes struggles to connect and reconnect to Betaflight. I think that is because everything powers up when you plug the USB connector in, and that's a lot of stuff that is running just from the USB connector. However, if I plug the battery in, it still seems to struggle to connect sometimes. So yeah, I might have to have a few goes of it. But the important things here are the serial RX for the receiver, so it's on the UART 3, so regardless to what receiver you use, you need to turn that on. If you go into the configuration, it was set to one shot 125, so I've got D shot 600. I've got the motor idle at 10 because the motors were stopping with the stock value. And I think I had barometer and mag turned on, so I turn those off. Got the craft name in there, got this set up for the receiver, so I turned dynamic filters on, anti-gravity and air mode. None of these were turned on there, so I think that's everything there. Then if we go into power and battery, so I've reduced this to 2.8 because with a 1-cell battery you will get voltage sag that will instantly sag below the stock values, and your beeper will be going off all the time. Also, as it's a high volt, you have to up the maximum cell voltage, otherwise it will beep as soon as you plug it in to say that your battery is overcharged. So for the PIDs, they're just stock Betaflight PIDs, and the weather is really windy here, so I'm just going to use these and see what it flies like, but I imagine it could do with a bit of a tune. These are my rates in here as well, and I've gone up on the anti-gravity gain and also up on the TPA a little bit as well. So if we go into the receiver, so it's TAER1234 for my Taranis, and this receiver actually does have the RSSI on the AUX 5, so I can use that on the on-screen display. I haven't got the transmitter turned on though, but yeah, all of that works and binds up in D8 mode. Then there were no modes, so I've got my arming on the AUX 2, and then I've got angle, and then acro and air over here, and then I've got the AUX 3 for the beeper. Now, I did have to change the direction of motor 4 because I soldered it up in a different order. I tried to solder it up all in the same order, but yeah, I just didn't quite make it on this one, but it's fine because we can go into BL Halley Suite and change the direction of that. But yes, you can check your motor direction here, of course, have the props off, plug your battery in, tick this, and then check that the motors all turn like this diagram here, and if not, note it down and then change it in BL Halley Suite. So next we have the on-screen display, and absolutely everything was turned on, so I've just got a couple of things on here like the craft name, the voltage, the fly mode, the flight time, and the RSSI. And this is an NTSC camera and you can't switch it, I don't think. It hasn't got the button on the front, so that's important to note. And then if we go into the CLI, let's just check the version. So it's an Omnibus F3 version 3.20, so yeah, there's a newer version of that now. And I also put the command in set small underscore angle equals 180 and then save, and that's actually now a setting in Betaflight, I think 3.3 in the configuration, but for 3.2 it's not there. So next I'm going to disconnect here, and then I'm going to disconnect the copter actually because it struggles to reconnect, so I'm just connecting the copter back in, and I've got the props off. Let's just plug the battery in here and wait for the tones, and then I'm going to go into BL Halley Suite and connect to it, and hopefully it'll give me a reading. So if I go read setup here, I just want to show you the version it came with, so 16.6. so if you did want to do D-Shock commands you would have to update it to 16.7, but I just reversed a motor direction here and then did right setup, and that is everything. Okay, let's get made in this guy. Now it's pretty windy here today, and they've cut the grass, so I'm going straight off the grass. I love the smell of freshly cut grass. It's been a while. Right, I'm just in angle mode here. Let's check out the punch. That is impressive, especially for 1S. Wow, yeah. I think probably, I know I say this a lot, but probably the most punch I've seen from a 1S brushless model. I think just the power to weight. Yeah, that's pretty impressive. I tell you what, these motors run smooth as. Let's see if I can do acro mode. Yep, it is getting pushed around a lot by the wind. I'm even amazed that it's flying though, to be honest, with this wind. Yeah, I tell you what, this is a nice little kit. Not for the faint-hearted, you know, some of that miniature soldering is not fun. But the price, Not bad, I don't think, for what you get. Some pretty nice components here, and some pretty nice punch. You even can do a power loop with it. I'm not sure what the flight time is going to be like. Probably quite short with these punches that I'm doing. But I really like it. I do. Let's have a listen. I mean, it's so quiet. I can't hear it against the wind. See if we've got any vibrations going on. I don't think so. I think any vibrations that are there are being caused by the frame. That is the downside to this. In order to get it so lightweight, that frame is so thin, and even though the copter's light in general, I can see the frame breaking if you hit something, like if you hit a tree or something. Well, I'm starting to see the punch decrease now, so let me stick it back in angle just to see if we've got any drift. Hard to tell with the wind, but it seems to be okay. But I think I'm losing my battery there, so let's bring it in. Okay, let's have a go at FPV. Now, I can see that camera shaking, even with the hot glue over the top, so I think it's going to need some more of that. It's really windy here today, so I'm not sure how it's going to be with the tune, but actually this is stock Betaflight tune and seems alright. That's full throttle there. Yeah, it feels pretty smooth considering the wind. Do you think that jallow and wobbles is just the loose camera mount? It feels pretty snappy. So you're able to do proper acro with this thing. Yeah, struggling into the wind there. Let's take a look. Yeah, RSSI getting pretty low, so you don't want to go too far with this guy. And that's straight into wind there at me, I think. So that's full power. So yeah, not the most amount of power, of course. Probably comparable to a brushed model, but of course these motors, they should last longer and they definitely run smoother. So the downsides for me really are the thin frame. I do think that it will break eventually, and the quality of the camera mount. Just a really bad 3D print. The camera wouldn't fit in properly. You can see I'm getting wobbles there, and that's just because it's wobbling about in the mount. It's difficult to put hot glue on a all-in-one because they get hot. So maybe a different type of glue, and you could glue the back of the VTX in as well as the front of the camera. So flight time doesn't seem bad though. I'm hearing the buzzer going, so yeah, I think that's it. 2 and a bit minutes there, and I've lost video. So yeah, don't let the battery get that low. It was just to check how long the flight time would be. And remember, there's 2 versions. I'll link them in the below, but as always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.